It didn't happen at a party, or some dramatic midnight confrontation with shouting and slammed doors. It didn't even happen at home. It happened in a crowded cafe in downtown Seattle, on a completely ordinary Wednesday afternoon. No storm clouds, no ominous music, just the soft clatter of ceramic mugs, distant indie music, and the quiet hum of strangers living their lives. I was supposed to be in a meeting, actually. One of those end-of-quarter strategy check-ins that seem important but never really go anywhere. Last-minute cancellation. My calendar opened up, and I figured I'd take a walk, clear my head, maybe get a coffee and answer a few emails. I wasn't thinking about her at all. Not in any suspicious way. I ducked into a spot I hadn't been to in months. A cozy, brick-walled cafe just off Pine Street. I used to come here back when Lena and I were apartment hunting. We even joked once about how this would be our place. It's funny what sticks. The place was packed, mostly with freelancers and college students hunched over laptops. I ordered a coffee, scanned for a seat, and that's when I saw her. She was near the front window, sunlight catching the side of her face. Her posture was relaxed, too relaxed. Her hands were wrapped around a mug, her head tilted slightly to the side, smiling in that quiet, affectionate way I hadn't seen in months. And sitting across from her was a man I didn't recognize. He leaned in close, laughing like whatever she had just said was the best thing he'd heard all day. I couldn't hear them, not over the hum of the place, but I didn't need to. The way she was looking at him, it said everything. I froze, completely still, one foot still half-turned from when I'd entered. I might have looked like a guy trying to decide where to sit, but my brain had stopped functioning. My eyes couldn't move. Lena, my wife, my best friend, sitting in front of another man like the rest of the world had disappeared. At first, I tried to logic it away. Maybe it was a coworker. Maybe she was just being friendly. She did that head-tilt smile with everyone, right? That soft laugh. Maybe I was overanalyzing it. But my gut didn't agree, because in the split second before she laughed, she touched his hand. Not a casual touch. Not an accident. The kind of touch you reserve for someone you want to feel something back. Soft. Familiar. And that's when it hit me. All at once. The 6:45 a.m. Breakfast meetings. The sudden interest in a new gym across town. A gym that conveniently closed early enough to prevent me from ever suggesting we go together. The new dresses she said were just because or on sale. The perfume I didn't recognize. The phone that was always face down. The way she started locking the bathroom door. Something she'd never done in 10 years of marriage. I hadn't been looking for proof. But now, it felt like I'd been tripping over it for months. She laughed again, and not the polite kind. It was the open, unfiltered laugh of someone who felt safe, adored, wanted. And suddenly, I wasn't standing in a cafe. I was somewhere else entirely. Outside of my own life. I didn't feel anger. Not right away. What I felt was distance. Like I was watching a movie of someone else's wife, someone else's unraveling. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough for my coffee to be ready. The barista called my name twice before I snapped out of it. I walked to the counter, picked it up, turned around slowly. My mind should have been screaming, but all I could hear was Lena's voice in my head, repeating things she'd said over the last few months. I need more space lately. I've been feeling stuck. Can't a woman just treat herself once in a while? Why are you being weird about this? And the worst one, you're imagining things. No, I wasn't. I took one more look. He said something. She leaned in, and for a second, I could see her entire face open and glowing. And I swear to God, she looked happier in that moment than she had in months with me. I didn't make a scene. I didn't go over there. Not yet. I just stood off to the side, watching them from behind a cluster of hanging plants. I knew I looked crazy. I didn't care. I needed to be sure. Then I heard it. I couldn't catch every word, but I caught this. You know you're my beloved. She said it to him. Not friend. Not coworker. Not pal. Beloved. Like something out of a handwritten letter or a poem. Something secret. Sacred. And that was it. That was all I needed. I pulled my wedding ring off my finger. It didn't even hurt. My hand felt strangely lighter, colder. I walked up to the counter where a young guy was clearing saucers, tapped his shoulder, and handed him the ring. "Give this to the lady at table 4, I said. "Tell her it covers the coffee." He looked confused, almost hesitant, but I was already walking out. She didn't see me until the last second. I heard her gasp. I didn't look back. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. The humiliation had already happened, and it wasn't mine. Outside, the air was cool. The sky was the kind of gray you don't even notice anymore when you live in Seattle. But it felt clearer somehow, like a moment of stillness just cracked open a bigger truth. I stood by the curb trying to breathe. Cars passed, people passed, and no one had any idea what had just happened. That was the strangest part, that something could break in you so deeply and the world just keeps going. I got in my car, sat in the driver's seat, gripped the steering wheel like it was the only thing tethering me to the planet. Then I finally let myself feel it. Not rage, not even grief, just the quiet realization that something had ended long before I noticed. And that maybe, just maybe, I'd been the last to know. Everything clicked at once. Like dominoes I hadn't even realized I'd lined up. I sat there in my car, just breathing, letting the weight of what I'd seen settle into my chest like concrete. My hands were shaking, not from adrenaline, but from the kind of quiet dread you don't even realize is building until it's too late. I looked down at the faint indentation on my ring finger and thought, how long had I been fooling myself? It wasn't sudden. It never is. The thing about betrayal is that it's quiet before it screams. And Lena, she'd been whispering the truth for months. Started small, harmless things. A morning workout here, a new outfit there. Nothing worth overthinking, or so I told myself. She used to sleep in. Lena hated mornings. But then out of nowhere, she became a 6 a.m. kind of person. Up early, gone before I even rolled over. Breakfast meetings, she said. Client development. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I was proud of how hard she worked. But after a while, even pride has to face reality. Because sometimes she came home still in her gym clothes, hair damp, skin glowing, but with no mention of any client. No meeting notes. No files. Just vague stories about traffic or protein smoothies or how she'd catch up on work later. There was also the phone. Always face down. Always on silent. She used to hand it to me to read texts if she was busy cooking. Now, she wouldn't even let it leave her pocket. I remember one night, maybe a month ago, when we were watching a movie together. Her phone buzzed. She reached for it so fast she knocked her wine over. We both stared at the spreading red stain on the carpet, but all I could think about was how quickly she'd reacted. She laughed it off, said it was just a reminder. She never showed me the screen. Then there were the dresses. Lena was never flashy. She liked soft things, cardigans, denim, sneakers. But one Saturday, she came home with a bag from some boutique I'd never heard of. Inside, a tight black dress, a pair of heels she'd never be able to walk in, and lipstick far darker than anything she'd worn before. Impulse buy, she said. Figured I could use a confidence boost. She smiled when she said it. But it wasn't for me. She wore that dress 3 times in the next month. Never around me. And when I asked, girls' night, networking event, nothing important. I didn't push. I didn't want to be that guy, the jealous, insecure husband. I trusted her. Or maybe I just trusted the version of her I remembered. There were other things. Little things that hit harder in hindsight. She stopped calling me babe. She started using my name more, like she was trying to keep me at a distance. She'd forget things, inside jokes, favorite songs, the way I liked my coffee. And when I brought it up, she'd shrug and say, "You're being sensitive." That one stuck with me. Sensitive. Like it was a bad thing to notice the woman I loved slipping away one excuse at a time. There were times I asked if something was wrong, if she needed to talk. I'd open that door as gently as I could. And every time, she'd smile that tired smile and say, "I'm just tired. Work is crazy." She never let me in. Not really. And I kept telling myself it was temporary, that she was overwhelmed, that maybe I wasn't doing enough to help. I started cleaning more, cooking dinner, sending her good morning texts even when she stopped replying to them. One time I showed up to her office with lunch, her favorite Thai place. She wasn't there. Her assistant said she was working remotely that day. I didn't ask questions, just smiled and left the food on her desk. She texted me 3 hours later. "Thanks for lunch, smiley face." No explanation, no apology. And I let it slide. Because the alternative, actually pulling on that thread, terrified me. I was afraid of what I'd unravel. I thought I was being patient, supportive. I thought I was giving her space to come back to me. But now I realize I was just watching her drift further and further away, convincing myself that silence was safer than the truth. And the truth had been standing right in front of me, wearing a button-down shirt and laughing at her jokes in a cafe we used to love. Evan. That was his name. I didn't know it then, but I would. I'd know a lot more than I ever wanted to. In that moment, though, I just sat there replaying every missed signal, every late night, every time she brushed me off with a kiss on the forehead and a "don't wait up." God, how many times had she told me not to wait up? And how many times had I believed her? I looked around the car like maybe something would explain how my life had just shifted on its axis. The seat beside me was empty. The passenger side mirror still had her fingerprints from the last time we went to the lake. That was the last trip we took together 6 weeks ago. I thought it was a reset, a weekend to reconnect. I'd planned it down to the hour. Snacks, playlists, a cabin with no cell signal. She seemed distant the whole time. Said the silence made her anxious. She spent most of the trip reading or scrolling through old photos. Not ours. Hers. Alone. I remember reaching for her hand during a hike. She let me hold it, but it felt like picking up something left out in the cold. And I thought, maybe I'm just overthinking. Maybe this is what 10 years looks like. Comfort, not fireworks. But love isn't supposed to feel like begging someone to notice you. Now I sat there thinking about every time she'd smiled at me with that polite edge. The kind of smile you give a neighbor, not a partner. And what cut the deepest wasn't the betrayal itself. It was realizing how long she'd been pretending. Pretending to love me. Pretending nothing was wrong. Pretending to come home to me when she'd already given herself to someone else. I looked at my hands. Still shaking. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was grieving something that hadn't died all at once. It had rotted slowly behind a polished front door, and I hadn't noticed the smell. And the worst part? She wasn't hiding it well anymore, because she didn't feel like she had to. I didn't plan what I did next. There was no script, no rehearsed speech, no dramatic fantasy of confrontation that I'd played out in my head. I just knew that standing there, watching her from across the cafe, something inside me had already shut down. I didn't feel rage. I felt clarity. Lena laughed again, leaning forward, elbows on the table now. The man across from her mirrored the movement, closing the space between them like it was second nature. They looked practiced, comfortable, like this wasn't new. I told myself I'd wait, that I'd listen more carefully, that I'd give her one last chance to exist in some gray area where this could still be explained away. I moved closer, pretending to browse the pastry case. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. And then I heard it. Her voice cut through the noise of the cafe, soft but certain. Not rushed, not playful. "You know you're my beloved. Beloved. Not coworker. Not friend. Not someone she grabbed coffee with." Beloved was a word she used carefully. And asterisk mately. She used to say it to me when we were alone, when the world felt small and safe. Hearing it now felt like something had been lifted out of my chest without anesthesia. The man smiled when she said it, like it belonged to him. That was the moment my marriage ended. Not later. Not during the divorce. Not when we signed papers. Right there, between a chipped ceramic mug and a half-eaten croissant. I reached for my ring. Slid off easily, like it had been waiting. I walked to the counter, placed it on a clean white saucer, and handed it to the waiter. A kid. Really? With tired eyes and an apron stained with espresso. "Table by the window," I said quietly. This covers the coffee. He looked at the ring, confused, then at me. Please, I said. That was all. I turned before he could ask anything else and walked toward their table. I didn't stop. I didn't slow down. I passed close enough that I could smell her perfume, the unfamiliar one, mixed with coffee and something sharper. Lena noticed me at the last second. Her face drained of color so fast it was almost impressive. She stood up too quickly, chair scraping loudly against the floor. Conversations nearby faltered. Heads turned. The man, Evan, I would later learn, froze, eyes darting between us, already calculating his exit. Hey, Lena said, forcing a smile that cracked immediately. What are you? I didn't answer. The waiter arrived behind me, holding out the saucer with my ring like an offering. This was left for you, he said, voice unsure. The ring clinked softly as it was set down. The cafe went quiet in that way public places do when something private breaks open. Not silent exactly, just attentive. Lena stared at the ring like it might explode. I looked at her one last time. Not with anger. Not with tears. Just recognition. And then I walked out. No shouting. No accusations. No explanations. I didn't know her one anymore. Outside, the air felt heavier, like the city had leaned in to watch. I stood on the sidewalk, hands in my pockets, staring at nothing. My reflection in the window across the street looked older, smaller. I heard the cafe door open behind me. Footsteps. Her voice calling my name. I didn't turn around. I got into my car, shut the door, and sat there as my pulse slowly settled. My phone buzzed once, then again. I didn't look. What surprised me most wasn't the pain. It was the absence of confusion. Everything finally made sense. Every late morning, every missed call, every time she'd told me I was imagining things. I wasn't. I started the engine and drove away. In the rearview mirror, downtown Seattle blurred into gray and glass. Somewhere behind me, a woman was scrambling to save a version of herself that no longer existed. I wasn't part of that anymore. For the first time in months, maybe years, I knew exactly where I stood. And I knew I wasn't going back. I didn't go home right away. I drove, aimlessly at first, no destination in mind, just motion. I ended up in an empty parking lot behind a grocery store we used to go to together. The place was closed, the lights inside dark, the sky above layered with clouds. The kind of gray that feels endless. I sat there with the engine off, window cracked slightly, letting in the cool air. My hands were resting on the steering wheel, not gripping it, just touching it. Like I didn't quite trust the world not to shift under me again. And that's when it started. The real. Every conversation, every deflection, every weird look. It all started rewinding in my head, faster than I could stop it. Like I was being forced to rewatch a movie I'd starred in without ever understanding the plot. The perfume. Let's start there. It showed up one evening around mid-October. I remember because we were supposed to go to dinner with friends, and she came downstairs wearing a navy dress I hadn't seen before and a scent that was sharp. It wasn't bad, just unfamiliar. Not the light vanilla and citrus she used to wear. New? I asked. She hesitated. Just long enough. Yeah, she said, smiling. Felt like switching it up. She kissed my cheek. I told her she smelled great, and I believed it. But after that, it became her default. A new signature. Something bolder. Like she was trying to step into a different version of herself. I thought it was just growth. But now I wonder if it was for him. Then there was the wine bar receipt. I found it in the pocket of her coat when I was looking for my earbuds. That was in November. She said she went to a gallery opening with coworkers. I remember the name of the bar because it was scribbled across the top in looping print, one of those trendy places that specializes in obscure French reds. It wasn't the kind of place she went to with her team. I knew most of her coworkers. They weren't that crowd. I asked her about it casually. She brushed it off. Said someone else had picked the spot, that she barely remembered it, that she was too tired that night to really enjoy it. I wanted to press her, but I didn't, because the second you start pressing, You're admitting you don't trust the person you love. And I wasn't ready to admit that yet. Another flash, a jacket. Men's clearly. Dark green, corduroy. I'd found it slung over the back of a kitchen chair one morning when I came downstairs. "Whose is this?" I asked. She barely glanced at it. "Oh, Evan left that. He swung by after his flight got delayed." That was the first time I'd heard the name. Evan. She said it like it was nothing, like I should already know. "He's from work?" I asked. "Sort of. He contracts with the firm sometimes." I didn't question it. She didn't offer more. Later that week, I Googled him. No social media. Just a bland LinkedIn profile and a blurry company bio. Business strategy consultant. Whatever that meant. I asked if she wanted me to return the jacket. She said, "Nah, he'll grab it next time." Next time. That phrase lingered longer than I cared to admit. Still, I told myself it was fine. Trust, right? That's what relationships are built on. But then came the silences. Not arguments. Not cold shoulders. Just long, heavy pauses in conversations where there used to be laughter or connection. She'd zone out more. Tap her nails on the counter while I talked. Half listen. Or smile politely like a stranger does when you say something nice at a party. She stopped asking about my day. And when I asked about hers, she'd shrug and say, "It was fine. Nothing exciting." Nothing exciting. That phrase, too, stuck to me like wet clothes. One night, I remember lying next to her in bed, both of us on our phones. Her screen glowed faint blue. She was smiling at it. Just a little. "Something funny?" I asked. She locked it immediately. "Just a dumb meme," she said, then rolled over and turned the light off. That was when she started sleeping closer to the edge. Like even in her dreams, she needed distance. I started staying up later, watching her breathe in the dark, wondering if she still felt me next to her, or if she was already somewhere else. And still, I didn't confront her. I journaled. That's the part that gets me now. I actually wrote down my fears, like I was documenting a case instead of living one. I kept track of how often she was working late, how many dinners she skipped, how she suddenly had to turn off Find My iPhone because it was draining battery. It didn't feel like a marriage anymore. Felt like surveillance. And yet, I still loved her. That's the hardest part to explain. That love doesn't always disappear when trust does. Sometimes they sit next to each other for a while, uncomfortable, awkward roommates who hate each other but can't quite move out, until something forces a change. Like today. Today was the moment the lock clicked and the truth walked in wearing my wife's favorite sweater. Now, sitting in my car in the dark, I realized what scared me the most wasn't that she cheated. It was how easy it had been for her to let go. How effortless the lies had become. How practiced. It wasn't clumsy. It wasn't accidental. It was orchestrated. I thought about our anniversary dinner 2 months ago. We went to a little Italian place we used to love. The same waiter even remembered us. We ordered pasta and wine and pretended to be okay. She kissed me at the end of the night, took a photo of us on the sidewalk, and captioned it, 10 years strong. Still my best friend. 10 years strong. The next morning, she left early for a conference call. Now I wonder who she really saw that day. Maybe him. Maybe someone else. Maybe she just drove around, wondering when she'd have the nerve to tell me it was over. Or maybe she was never going to tell me. Maybe I was supposed to just keep smiling. Keep saying, "I love you." Keep ignoring the obvious until it collapsed on top of me. Like it did this afternoon. Beloved. I kept hearing that word in her voice. Like a ghost whispering through a cracked wall. The tone she used. Soft. Int asterisk mate. Familiar. Like it wasn't the first time she'd said it to him. Like it wouldn't be the last. My phone buzzed again. Her name lit up the screen. I didn't answer. Not because I was punishing her, but because I honestly didn't know what she could possibly say now that would matter. There were no more explanations. She'd already told the truth. Just not to me. It was a Thursday when I came home early. I'd been working late most nights, trying to avoid the house, to avoid her. But that day, everything inside me just snapped. I'd spent 3 hours staring blankly at a spreadsheet, pretending to care about quarterly reports, when my body just stood up. No plan. No meeting canceled. I just grabbed my jacket, nodded at the receptionist on the way out, and walked to my car like a man being pulled by something he couldn't name. I didn't even text her. Maybe some part of me wanted to catch her. Maybe another part already knew I would. Traffic was light for once. The kind of quiet drive that should have been peaceful but wasn't. Every streetlight felt like a countdown. Every block closer to home felt heavier. I don't remember what was on the radio. I remember my hands on the wheel, flexing and unflexing. I remember looking at the house as I pulled up and feeling a kind of weight in my chest that made it hard to breathe. Her car was in the driveway. Lights on upstairs. No movement. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. Quiet. Too quiet. Lena always had something going, a podcast, music, the TV left humming in the background. But today, just silence. Not even the low murmur of the fridge. The air felt still, like the moment before a thunderstorm hits. All pressure, no sound. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door and waited. Nothing. Lena, I called out. No answer. I started walking up the stairs slowly, each step creaking under my weight. I wasn't trying to be quiet, but I wasn't exactly stomping either. I just moved, one foot in front of the other, like a man headed somewhere final. At the top of the stairs, the smell hit me. Not bad, not dirty, just off, like cologne that didn't belong to me, like heat, like too many people in a room that was meant for two. The bedroom door was slightly open, and I could hear the shower running. My breath caught. The shower. At 3 p.m. I pushed the door open. The room was dim, the curtains drawn, but I could still see the shape of it, the outline of what used to be our world. Only it looked different now. Lived in by someone I didn't recognize. The bed was unmade. Not just unmade. Used. The sheets were rumpled. Pillows tossed. And on the chair by the window a man's shirt. Crisp. Blue. Not mine. I stared at it for a long time. I don't know why. Felt like the shirt was mocking me. I took a step forward. Then another. And then the bathroom door creaked open. He stepped out. Evan. Wrapped in a towel, hair damp, holding his phone in one hand. He froze when he saw me. For a second we just stood there. Two men staring at each other with nothing left to guess. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. And then she stepped out behind him. Lena. Wearing nothing but a towel and a look I'd never seen on her face before. Not surprise. Not fear. Just defeat. Like she'd run out of lies. I didn't say anything. Neither did she. Because there was nothing to say. I'd already heard everything I needed to hear in that cafe. Everything after that was just confirmation. I looked at her. Really looked. And all I could think was, so this is who you are now. She didn't cry. Didn't rush toward me. Didn't even try to explain. She just stood there, dripping water onto the hardwood, watching me watch her. I turned and walked out. No words. No scene. No begging or screaming. Just silence. I walked down the stairs the same way I came up, slow, measured, numb. I felt disconnected from my own body, like I was watching myself from above. At the door I paused. The bowl still held my keys. Same as always. I picked them up, opened the door, and left. That was the last time I stepped foot in that house while we were still married. Later, she'd try to reach out. Texts, emails, voicemails I didn't listen to. But in that moment, standing in a house that smelled like sweat and betrayal, I knew there was no version of this story where we came back from it. Not after that. I didn't need her to lie anymore. And I didn't need to hear her apologize for something she wasn't sorry for. Because if she were, she wouldn't have done it in the first place. I didn't shout. I didn't break anything. I just walked out. The house, the lies, the version of my life I thought was real. I left it all behind that day. The divorce moved fast. Cold. Efficient. Like signing off on a contract we both stopped reading long ago. No big fights. No last-ditch promises. Just lawyers, paperwork, silence. She tried to call once. I let it ring out. There wasn't anything left to say. Not after seeing them together. Not after watching her choose someone else. Not once, but every day she kept the lie going. I boxed up what was mine and let her keep the rest. The memories, the space, the life that wasn't really ours anymore. It was over. And weirdly, that was the first time I felt still. Not happy, not healed, but still. I wasn't part of her story anymore. And maybe that was okay. Months later, in a quiet cafe outside the city, I met Claire. She was reading alone, wedding ring off, eyes tired in a way I recognized. We started talking. Nothing forced. No drama. Just two people who'd been through the same storm. She was Evan's wife. She didn't cry. I didn't either. We didn't swap horror stories. We talked about silence. About how long it takes to notice someone's already gone. No bitterness. No plans. Just a strange comfort in being understood without explaining. When we left, we didn't exchange numbers. We didn't need to. For the first time in a long while, I realized I hadn't lost my life. I just stepped out of someone else's. And maybe, finally, I could start living mine.